Hello, and welcome again to Over the Hill Outdoors. Today's topic, the Surefire Fire Lay. The instructions in this video are meant primarily for young Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts who are just learning how to build and light a campfire. Going from a single spark to a roaring warm campfire is easy if the fire lay is constructed properly and if the right kinds and sizes of materials are used. The first step is to gather plenty of dry tinder, dry kindling, and dry firewood. Don't get in a hurry, and don't scrimp on the amounts you gather. Boy Scouts are taught to use at least one hatful of tinder and at least 2 hatsful of kindling. I'd say that's just the bare minimum. And also take all the time necessary to find the driest material possible. Wet or damp wood is just going to result in frustration. And also look for the finest tinder available. Ideally, your base layer of tinder should be made up of fibers about the diameter of a hair. I'll demonstrate the importance of fiber thickness by comparing 3 potential tinders. First, I try to ignite dry match diameter sticks. After more than a dozen strikes of the ferro rod, I still don't have a flame. Next, I try dry grass with stems about the diameter of toothpicks. Still no flame. Now watch what happens when I crush and fray the grass material to produce a bunch of smaller fibers. Notice a flame appears after only 3 strikes. Now the last tinder is milkweed fluff, made up of fibers about the thickness of a hair. A single strike creates an almost explosive flame. Here I've laid out the materials I will use for my fire lay. I'll begin with a good quantity of hair diameter tinder as my fuel base, in this case some milkweed fluff, followed by a layer of fine toothpick diameter tinder, in this case dry grass. Next I'll add some matchstick diameter kindling, followed by a layer of pencil thin kindling, and then finger thickness kindling, followed last of all by some 1-inch diameter fuel wood. If you'll remember these simple size categories of hair, toothpick, matchstick, pencil, finger, and 1-inch diameter, you'll have much more success in making fire. And now on to making the actual fire lay. I like to begin with what I call a lean-to fire lay. It's nothing more than using a log or a rock to protect your tinder from the wind and on which to prop up or rest your next layer or two of the additional tinder and kindling that you're going to have to add, so that you don't smash down that base tinder layer. I begin with a good quantity of hair diameter tinder as my base. Second, I put down a layer of fine toothpick diameter tinder, and in this case I'm using grass, which is my preference when I can find it. Notice that I crush it and then mix it in with some of the milkweed fluff. Next, I'll add my matchstick diameter kindling on top of the fluff and the grass, leaning the sticks against that log so that they don't crush down my fluff and grass layer. I also leave a doorway on one side next to the log so that I can reach in to my fluff with the striker when it comes time to light it. Next step, add plenty of pencil thin kindling. Follow that with more finger thick kindling. You'll notice that as my kindling gets larger, I've changed from a lean-to style to a teepee style fire lay. The last step is to add 1-inch diameter fuel wood. Though I don't do it here, you could keep adding larger and larger diameter sticks and logs to the fire set, depending on how big you want your initial campfire to be. Okay, now I move around to the doorway side of my set. I drag a little fluff out to where my spark can reach it easily, and then I'll make a single strike of my knife on the ferro rod, and that's all it took. I sit back and let the physics of fire run its course. The heat transferring up, flames jumping from smaller to the next larger pieces of tinder, and then kindling, and then fuel wood, until the fire set is completely engulfed in flame. There's no fanning, no blowing required. It just takes off all on its own. Building a dependable, reliable fire lay is based on remembering just a few basic truths about fire and fuel. First of all, heat rises and flames climb. So, place most of your fuel above the point of ignition, not to the side, not below. Second, young flames are lazy, so don't make them reach far to touch the next piece of fuel above them. Less than half their length, half the length of the flame is my rule. Also, fire needs air, so leave plenty of space between your fuel pieces, but not so much to break rule number 2. And rule number 4 is start with small diameter fuel or tinder at the base and work up gradually in size. Take baby steps in terms of fuel diameter. Next, don't skimp on the quantity of fuel in each size class. Remember the baseball cap rule. Next, dry fuel requires less heat energy to light, so use the driest wood possible. It should snap when you bend it. That's an easy indicator. And last, if you have damp conditions, use the heat from your burning fuel to heat up and dry out your cold, damp fuel by placing it above the fire. Not on it to where it smothers it, but don't waste heat by waiting to add damp fuel to your fire. With those tips, you should be very successful at starting your next fire. Good luck.